Right then, pull up a chair, grab a pint or a cup of tea if you're feeling proper, and let me tell you about a lass who really knew how to stir the pot, Victoria Woodhull. Now, when I say stir the pot, I mean she threw the bloody pot, the stove, and half the kitchen out the window. She was less a polite reformer and more a whirlwind of pure, unadulterated, scandalous ambition. If modern feminism needed a wild, untamed ancestor who rode into town on a spiritualist steed, it would be her. Born Victoria Claflin in the wilds of Ohio in 1838, her childhood was about as stable as a one-legged table on a roller coaster. Her dad was a con artist, selling snake oil and peddling spiritualist hoaxes, and her mum was, well, a bit unhinged. So young Victoria and her sister Tennessee, or Tenny for short, bless her heart, were dragged all over the place, shilling their parents miracle cures and performing as child clairvoyants. Imagine that for a childhood. Right, kids, today we're predicting the future for a nickel, or curing Aunt Mildred's gout with a bit of tap water and a well-placed cough. It was a proper circus, and it taught Victoria one thing. If you want something, you've got to make it happen yourself, even if it means bending a few rules or snapping them clean in half. Her first marriage, 15 years old, to a 28-year-old doctor named Canning Woodhull. Sounds romantic, right? Wrong. He was a drunk, a philanderer, and pretty much useless. Victoria quickly learned that for better or worse could involve a whole lot of worse. She had 2 kids with him, including a son with developmental disabilities, which she attributed to Canning's boozing. So, at a time when divorce was as scandalous as showing your ankles in public, Victoria just thought, sod this for a game of soldiers, and got herself out of it. She kept his name, though, which is a power move if ever there was one. Now, after ditching the deadweight, Victoria and Tenny, who had a knack for charming the trousers off anyone, decided to take their spiritualist act to New York. And who do they bump into? None other than Cornelius Vanderbilt, the bloody railroad tycoon himself. Old Vanderbilt, a man whose pockets were deeper than the Mariana Trench, was a bit sweet on spiritualism, and Tenny apparently had quite the influence over him. So, with Vanderbilt's backing, and some very timely stock tips, mind you, these 2 sisters, these former travelling clairvoyants, opened a brokerage firm on Wall Street. Yes, you heard that right. In 1870, Victoria Woodhull and Tennessee Claflin became the first women to own and operate a brokerage firm on Wall Street. The press, bless their cotton socks, called them the Bewitching Brokers and Queens of Finance. Imagine the scenes. The old boys' club of finance suddenly confronted with 2 women in their hallowed halls, probably choking on their cigars. This wasn't just about making a buck, though. This was about power, about proving that women could do anything men could, and then some. With their newfound wealth, they launched Woodhull and Claflin's Weekly, a newspaper that was less a gentle periodical and more a hand grenade tossed into polite society. It advocated for women's suffrage, yes, but also for free love, which, let's be clear, wasn't about orgies in the streets, though the Victorians certainly thought it was. It was about women having the right to choose who they loved, when they married, and crucially when they divorced, free from the shackles of societal expectation and abusive husbands. A truly revolutionary idea, don't you think? Imagine a woman today saying, "My body, my choice, my marriage, my choice, my divorce, my choice." Sounds perfectly normal now, doesn't it? Back then, it was like she'd sprouted a second head. By the way, get this. Woodhull and Claflin's Weekly was the first American publication to print Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto in English. Yes, the original free love, Wall Street broker, spiritualist feminist was also introducing Americans to the theories of class struggle. If that's not a mixed bag, I don't know what is. This brings us to her audacious leap into the political arena. In 1872, with women still decades away from even getting the vote, Victoria Woodhull declared herself a candidate for President of the United States. Not just any candidate, mind you, but on the Equal Rights Party ticket. with the abolitionist hero Frederick Douglass as her unwitting running mate. He never actually accepted the poor man, probably too busy trying to figure out how to untangle himself from that particular association. Her platform wasn't just about women getting the vote. Oh no, she was playing the long game. She wanted universal gender and racial equality, an 8-hour workday, welfare for the poor, nationalisation of railroads, the big tech of her day, and tax reform. She argued that women already had the right to vote under the 14th and 15th Amendments, a legal interpretation that was utterly brilliant and utterly ignored by pretty much everyone in power. Now, here's where the ethical analysis comes in. Victoria Woodhull had moral clarity in spades, a laser-like focus on purpose, genuine equality for all, especially women. She believed in self-ownership for women, not just in their minds, but their bodies and their economic lives. She was fiercely principled in her pursuit of freedom and justice, viewing marriage laws and societal norms as despotic controls over women. She saw the hypocrisy of men who preached morality while living lives of quiet or not so quiet debauchery, and she wasn't afraid to call them out. However, her methods were, well, chaotic. Her willingness to expose the private lives of prominent figures, particularly the scandalous Henry Ward Beecher affair, a famous preacher allegedly having an affair with a married parishioner, led to obscenity charges and her spending election day in jail. Was this a stroke of genius or madness? A bit of both, I reckon. On one hand, she was exposing the rampant hypocrisy of the era, the double standards that shackled women while men frolicked. On the other hand, it alienated a good chunk of the more respectable suffragists, like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who thought Woodhull's radical views on sex and scandalous revelations would tarnish their carefully constructed movement. What were the trade-offs? She sacrificed her mainstream acceptance for a broader, more radical vision of equality. She chose to be a lightning rod, drawing all the fire so that perhaps someday the path would be clearer for others. She lived by her convictions, even when they led to public humiliation and financial ruin. It was a risky strategy, and it certainly cost her in the short term. Did her actions always match her values? Yes, she walked the talk, living openly with her ex-husband, current husband, and sometimes even a lover, proving her belief in free love wasn't just talk. This, of course, was another reason society went absolutely bonkers. After the election day in jail and the continued vilification, Victoria and Tenny eventually packed their bags and sailed for England in 1877. They married wealthy men, because of course they did, and settled into more conventional lives, though Victoria continued to advocate for women's education and social reform. She even dabbled in eugenics, which, while a popular and widely accepted science at the time, certainly doesn't stand up to modern ethical scrutiny. It's a stark reminder that even the most forward-thinking individuals can be products of their time, and that pursuing societal perfection can lead down some truly dark alleys. Her son's developmental disabilities led her to believe in stir-fry culture, or selective breeding, to improve humanity, a concept that, while presented as benevolent, was deeply flawed and harmful. It's a complex legacy, isn't it? A woman so far ahead of her time in so many ways, yet still susceptible to the prejudices and flawed scientific theories of her era. She died in 1927, having seen women finally get the vote in both America and England, a testament to the long, hard fight she'd been part of. Victoria Woodhull was a whirlwind, a force of nature, a woman who dared to imagine a world where women were truly free, economically, socially, and sexually. She might have been a bit mad, a bit chaotic, and definitely a bit scandalous, but she broke down barriers with the force of a battering ram, and for that we raise a glass. What can we learn from Victoria Woodhull? First, that true change often comes from the fringes, from those willing to be utterly, magnificently disruptive. Second, that moral clarity and purpose, even when pursued through unconventional means, can leave a lasting impact. And finally, that progress isn't a straight line. It's messy, it's contradictory, and it's often driven by individuals who are both brilliant and deeply flawed. She was a woman who didn't just ask for a seat at the table. She built her own bloody table, invited herself, and then probably stood on it to shout about how ridiculous everyone else was. Stay curious, stay sharp, and stay just sober enough to remember it all. This was just a swig of history, and if it wasn't in your textbook, it bloody well should have been. And before you go, do a brother favour and like, share, and subscribe.